teaching machines to understand football. Laying the foundation for AI to see, interpret, and analyze the game, Pedro Eloy focuses on the topic of sports data and broadcast technology, and through the story of Felipe Gomes, club manager at Viva Gem Lisbon and former data analyst at Benfica Lab, examines the human foundations behind technological transformation. Before machines learn how to see, humans first had to define what mattered, interpret complexity, and build the systems that made intelligence possible. In this episode, you'll gain insights into, first, AI does not replace expertise overnight, it is built on it. The hidden workforce behind digital transformation matters. Data quality is a human challenge before it becomes a technology challenge. Real-time intelligence changes operating models. And finally, automation creates an innovation paradox, and the future belongs to human and machine collaboration.
Business Masters series examines how organizations build, sustain, and renew competitive advantage by exploring leadership decisions, operating models, innovation strategies, and critical inflection points. Welcome to another episode of Business Masters, Behind the Decisions That Shape Successful Companies, a program produced by Pedro Eloy and Chin Ma. The series features conversations with CEOs, founders, corporate leaders, innovators, and industry experts who have shaped successful organizations through strategic decision-making and disciplined execution. Beyond the final whistle, I want you to picture this highly specific scene. It is 4 o'clock in the morning, back in 2017. You are inside a massive football stadium that, just a few hours ago, was vibrating with 60,000 screaming supporters.
But now it's dead quiet.
Completely silent. The players are gone, the pitch is empty. But deep inside the concrete belly of that stadium, far away from the glamour of the pitch, there's a windowless room. Inside, 8 exhausted analysts are staring at a laptop. They are manually clicking through video frames one by one, correcting digital tracking data to meticulously rebuild the game. They're logging running distances, mapping speeds, charting tactical structures, and by morning, they're expected to deliver this flawless statistical dashboard to the coaches.
You know, what's fascinating here is the stark operational contrast. The outside world, and frankly, most executive boards, they look at that final dashboard and assume the data just magically appeared.
Right, like the computer just did it all.
Exactly. But the machine isn't doing the work independently at all. It is entirely propped up by this grueling, invisible human labor force. In business, we are so obsessed with the idea of effortless, automated solutions.
Oh, definitely.
But behind almost every seemingly frictionless digital product, especially in its early days, there is a highly intensive human backend working through the night just to ensure the system doesn't collapse.
That makes total sense.
A camera sees shapes. A computer processes pixels, a human understands football. The reason those analysts had to be there at 4 a.m. really comes down to a fundamental limitation of early systems.
Right, because early AI couldn't really think.
Exactly. A camera simply sees shapes. A computer processes those shapes as pixels, but it takes a human being to actually understand football. Early AI was being taught to see, but, seeing isn't comprehending.
Yeah, totally different things.
A machine can easily measure a player sprinting 20 yards into open space. It can track the speed and the trajectory, but it has absolutely zero idea why that movement matters. It completely misses the tactical intention, the vision of the pass, or the deception behind the run.
Exactly. There is a massive gap between capturing data and actually possessing contextual comprehension. I always think of it like this. It's like handing a computer a dictionary and expecting it to instantly understand the emotion of a poem.
Oh, that's a brilliant analogy.
Right. Sure, the software can define every single word on the page with perfect accuracy, but it doesn't feel the rhythm, and it certainly doesn't grasp the underlying meaning. Early AI in any industry is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's just raw numbers.
It can process the raw pixels or the numbers, but it takes profound domain expertise to teach the system the actual poetry of the data. Which brings us to the people who are actually writing that poetry, professional football data evolution, teaching machines how to interpret football.
The human element.
Yeah, exactly. Back in the 2016-2017 season, Felipe Gomes entered Benfica Lab for an internship. He walked right into the middle of this massive operational shift, moving away from traditional instinct-based scouting and towards strict, data-driven decision-making.
A huge transition.
Huge. He was working with a proprietary tracking system called Data Tracks. And their work was incredibly similar to what CGI artists do in cinema. When you watch a blockbuster movie, you just see a seamless digital world, right?
Yeah, you don't notice the artificial parts.
You don't see the army of artists spending hours adjusting lighting and hidden details to make the artificial look real. Felipe and his team were the sports analytics version of that. Football and computers spoke entirely different languages, and these analysts were the translation layer.
And let's be clear about how critical that translation layer is in the broader business world. When any legacy, instinct-driven industry undergoes digital transformation, you cannot simply drop cutting-edge software into an old environment and expect instant innovation.
No, it never works.
It will fail every time. Someone has to manually build the bridge. You need people who understand both the gritty operational reality on the factory floor and the sterile database architecture in the cloud.
You mean both sides?
Without human translators actively connecting those two opposing worlds, your entire digital strategy will just buckle under its own weight. Stadiums as large-scale data collection systems. To even begin that translation, the physical environment had to change. Transforming a flowing game of football into structured data actually started as an infrastructure project. Inside Benfica's Estadio da Luz, they had to install specific motion-sensing cameras high up on the stadium roof, looking almost entirely vertically downward.
They couldn't just use the regular TV feeds.
Not at all. High-definition broadcast cameras are positioned to capture emotion and storytelling. Because they shoot from a horizontal sideline angle, they create what data scientists call data occlusion. Basically, players constantly overlap each other from the camera's perspective.
Oh, I see.
To a computer, that overlap is just a confusing, useless cluster of pixels. So they had to physically adapt the stadium with vertical cameras to turn the building itself into a giant data collection system.
Okay, let's unpack this because the tech infrastructure implications here are huge. Digital transformation almost always demands massive physical changes to support your data collection. It's a harsh reality check.
It really is.
If you are trying to implement a cutting-edge AI supply chain tracker, but your warehouse cameras are still angled to catch shoplifters rather than map spatial workflows, your AI is going to fail. You can't run new software on old, misaligned hardware setups.
The foundation has to be right.
Exactly. The physical environment literally has to be redesigned to help the computer see clearly before you get a single usable insight. Technology produced the information. Humans protected its meaning. Even with that perfect roof-mounted setup, the data wasn't safe yet.
Right. There are still issues.
During a live match, the tracking system produced a top-down view with 22 digital markers representing the players. It looked a lot like a classic video game, but it was nowhere near fully automated.
They still had to watch it.
The analysts had to supervise the machine's interpretation live, in real time. They were constantly making sure the digital markers stayed attached to the right players amidst the incredibly high-speed, unpredictable chaos of a professional match. Just one sudden sprint or a multiplayer collision, and the system would instantly lose track of who was who.
Which perfectly highlights the absolute necessity of rigorous quality control in any tech deployment. When you are scaling early technology, it requires intensive, hypervigilant human oversight just to guarantee basic data integrity.
You really have to babysit it.
Yes, the system can give you incredible volume, but it absolutely cannot guarantee validity. Operationally, you have to staff for that supervision. If an organization decides to rely on a machine's raw output without a human safety net actively verifying those feeds, the entire downstream analytical process and every decision made from it is going to be fundamentally compromised.
That's a scary thought for a lot of companies.
For sure. To see exactly how dangerous that can be, we have to look deeper into that issue of data occlusion, which is when accurate data was wrong, catching machine errors.
Okay.
Think about a scenario where two players jump simultaneously for a header. From the camera's perspective, those two bodies merge into one single pixel cluster. When they land and separate, the machine has to guess which player went left and which went right.
Oh, wow. It's just flipping a coin.
Basically. Without analysts manually dragging and correcting those markers in a fraction of a second, a striker's high-speed sprinting statistics could suddenly be assigned to a central defender. The data output would look perfectly formatted, beautifully presented, and completely false.
And I really want you, the listener, to think about how this applies to your own work. Have you ever made a major strategic decision based on a beautifully polished, perfectly formatted dashboard that ultimately turned out to be completely wrong?
It's a trap so many fall into.
It happens all the time. That is the immense business risk we are talking about here. False confidence is so much more dangerous than having no information at all. Acting blindly on flawed data simply because the presentation looks professional is a huge trap. The technology was perfectly capable of producing the numbers, but it was entirely up to the humans to protect the truth.
Right.
Providing context. How did they protect that truth when the cameras failed? The hardware at the time couldn't zoom in to read faces, and it couldn't reliably read shirt numbers from that high up. It was just tracking blurry movement.
So how did they know who was who?
Well, to solve this, the analysts had to create their own internal database of player behavior. They became their own human artificial intelligence. They memorized unique running styles, specific body postures, and even the color of players' boots, just to identify them from a blurry overhead dot.
That is incredible dedication.
They knew exactly how a specific midfielder dropped his shoulder before receiving a pass. But when they played away matches against lower division teams where they didn't have that intimate knowledge, the struggle was immense because that vital human context was missing.
That is such a brilliant illustration of the tension between raw tech and deep domain expertise. Algorithms, by their very nature, lack context. Those analysts were the vital safety net, filling the cognitive void that pure quantitative data cannot capture.
They really were.
In your industry, your domain experts possess a wealth of implicit knowledge. They understand the running styles of your market, the subtle shifts in consumer behavior that a newly implemented CRM or AI tool simply won't recognize.
You can't just program that intuition.
No, you can't. If you remove your human experts too early in an automation push, the machine loses its ability to interpret the messy nuances of the real world. Separating data capture from decision intelligence. Managing all this complexity required a very specific organizational structure. The analysts strictly divided their labor to survive the data deluge. 7 analysts focused solely on tracking the movements of the players, while 1 highly specialized analyst focused entirely on tracking the ball.
Wow, just the ball.
Just the ball. But crucially, the people who were mining and cleaning this raw data overnight were not the same people providing high-level tactical strategy to the manager the next morning.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah, the cognitive limits of the human brain dictated this. The people ensuring the accuracy of the data needed extreme distance and recovery before anyone could analyze its broader strategic meaning.
That is a vital organizational design point that so many companies get wrong. Successful businesses must strictly separate data engineering, which is the grueling capture, cleaning, and formatting phase, from data science, which is the actual decision intelligence phase.
They're completely different mindsets.
Exactly. You cannot ask an employee to spend 8 hours untangling a messy, overlapping data pipeline and then expect them to immediately pivot and present a visionary, high-level strategic insight to the board. It causes total cognitive overload. Extracting the raw material and shaping the strategy are 2 entirely different jobs.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, even with the perfect structure, the environment simply overwhelms you. When football data speed outpaced human tracking.
The limitations of manual work.
Yeah, that solo analyst who was tasked with tracking the ball faced an absolute nightmare when they played against teams using rapid, Guardiola-style passing systems. Trying to manually log every single touch, interception, and transition in real time was like trying to perfectly transcribe a chaotic argument where 5 people are yelling.
Oh, that sounds impossible.
It practically was. The players on the pitch were physically moving and passing the ball faster than human cognitive processing speed could actually handle.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are looking at the exact inflection point where the speed of a subject permanently outstrips the measurement tool's capacity. There is a hard limit to manual innovation.
You just hit a wall eventually.
Right. When your operating environment or your market accelerates beyond human cognitive limits, your manual processes don't just slow down a little bit, they completely break. The critical business lesson here is learning to recognize the moment your market is moving so fast that your legacy tracking systems are no longer keeping you informed, but are actually blinding you to reality.
It's a very dangerous tipping point.
It is. And speed wasn't just a problem on the pitch, it was the defining constraint of their entire workflow. Data perishability, turning match data into real-time advantage. We have to go back to why they were working until 6 a.m. in the first place.
Why the rush?
The rush was entirely dictated by data perishability. In elite sports, physical and tactical data has an incredibly short shelf life. The medical and coaching teams absolutely needed that physical workload data before the next training session on Tuesday morning.
So it was a hard deadline.
A very hard deadline. If a player experienced extreme physical exertion on Saturday and the medical team didn't find out until Tuesday afternoon, the competitive advantage was completely lost, and the risk of a catastrophic muscle injury skyrocketed.
It is exactly like supply chain perishability. Actionable intelligence only matters if it arrives in time to be acted upon. If your team is delivering perfectly clean, 100% accurate data, but you deliver it 2 days after the critical strategic decision had to be made, that perfect data is entirely useless.
Completely useless.
Right. Business strategy relies on timely intelligence. You constantly have to balance the noble pursuit of absolute data perfection against the very real, very unforgiving deadlines of your operational reality. Sometimes, 90% accurate data delivered on time is infinitely more valuable than 100% accurate data delivered a day late.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, everything we just discussed was for home matches, where they control the environment. Headline 11. When automated systems meet real-world complexity, away matches were a completely different beast.
They didn't have their cameras.
Exactly. Without their specialized roof-mounted cameras, they were forced to rely on standard TV broadcast footage. This resulted in 3 times more correction work. The analysts had to use deep tactical deduction to reconstruct reality from incomplete, overlapping video feeds.
That requires so much intuition.
It does.
Yeah.
For example, if the camera lost the left back during a counterattack, the analyst had to use their knowledge of the team's tactical system to deduce exactly where that player theoretically should be positioned, essentially filling in the blind spots of the data with their own football intelligence.
This is a masterclass in operational resilience. It exposes the systemic vulnerability of relying on uncontrolled external environments. In business, the moment you step outside your own perfectly controlled ecosystem, whether that's relying on a vendor's supply chain data or a third-party platform's metrics, things get messy fast.
It never goes exactly to plan.
Never. When your ideal infrastructure vanishes and the tech goes blind, human intuition and tactical deduction become your only fail-safe. Robust organizations don't just plan for when the dashboard works perfectly, they heavily rely on the deep contextual knowledge of their teams to manually reconstruct reality when the system fails.
That's a great takeaway.
The humans who taught machines how to see. The technology didn't stay blind forever. By 2022, the grueling manual era was largely coming to an end.
The algorithms caught up.
They did. Modern AI tracking models are now trained on vast oceans of historical data. They don't just react anymore, they predict player positions using history, speed trajectories, and body orientation, maintaining player identity flawlessly even through the most complex physical overlaps.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is autonomous, real-time insight. But it is crucial to remember that this modern miracle was entirely built on the foundation of manual correction and verification done by Felipe's generation of analysts.
Here's where it gets really interesting from a tech evolution standpoint. We're witnessing the exact transition from human-supervised machine learning to autonomous predictive AI in live environments. The system evolved from needing humans to fix its mistakes after the fact to predicting the future independently.
But it didn't do it alone.
No, that AI did not teach itself. It only learned what a tactical shift was, or how to identify a specific type of sprint, because a human being spent thousands of hours in a windowless room meticulously labeling, correcting, and feeding it the truth. Final thoughts.
The big picture.
Yeah, and it's a profound irony regarding automation. We automate things to remove the grueling, repetitive 4 a.m. tasks, which is undeniably a good thing. But in doing so, we threaten the deep, intuitive understanding that humans only gain by struggling with that raw data.
You lose that intimacy with the information.
Exactly. By paying attention to every single meticulous detail, those analysts absorb the rhythm of the game into their bones. Now, the very people whose late-night corrections and interpretations made automation possible are ironically made far less necessary by the brilliant technology they helped build.
It is the ultimate innovation paradox, and it poses a massive, unavoidable question for the future of work. When machines can do everything faster and more accurately, we risk entirely erasing deep domain intuition.
We really do.
Those analysts understood the game at a mastery level precisely because they had to manually translate its uncertainty. If an algorithm simply hands you the final answer on a silver platter, you lose the friction that creates true expertise. The core strategic question for businesses going forward is, will you still value, protect, and cultivate that human understanding when the algorithm appears to have all the answers?
It's something every leader needs to think about.
It is. And to close out the core of our analysis today, a note of appreciation. The original text concludes by explicitly thanking Felipe Gomes, current club manager at Viva Gym Lisbon and former Benfica analyst, for openly sharing his experience.
A huge thank you to him.
Yes, his story beautifully contextualizes the immense, often invisible human effort that powers our modern data-driven decisions.
It really is a vital reminder. Every major digital transformation, every polished real-time dashboard, every AI miracle we marvel at in our daily lives, they're all driven by human stories. Real people sitting in windowless rooms doing the messy, invisible work required to drag the future into the present.
Absolutely.
So before we go, we want to leave you with a quick reading list to explore these concepts further. First up is a paper by Baptista et al. From 2018. This is a brilliant study on quantified positional data.
That's a great one for the physical side.
Yeah, if you want to understand exactly how tracking data directly influences a player's physical workload and recovery in a practical sense, start there. Next, we have Krang et al., 2025. This looks deeply into the concurrent validity of AI tracking.
Oh, that's perfect for the tech enthusiasts.
Definitely. It is absolutely perfect if you want to geek out on exactly how broadcast footage is utilized by modern computer vision systems. Then, of course, Gomes, 2026. This is Pedro Eloy's original interview with Felipe Gomes.
The absolute heartbeat of today's episode.
Yes, we highly recommend seeking this out. It provides the pure, unfiltered human story behind all this data.
Yeah.
Also, Naik et al., 2022. This is a comprehensive review of computer vision in sports.
Highly recommend that one.
We recommend it for a fantastic macro-level view of where the technology currently stands and where the industry is heading next. And finally, Hughes et al., 2025. A paper on multimodal transformer diffusion frameworks, which is essentially the cutting-edge AI method for filling in the blanks when cameras completely lose sight of a player.
Mind-blowing stuff.
It really is. If you are deeply curious about the absolute frontier of AI tracking reconstruction, that is the paper for you.
And just a quick note about the author behind today's analysis. Pedro Eloy is an international executive specializing in enterprise growth, digital transformation, and strategic market expansion. With over 25 years of leadership across Asia, Europe, and the Americas, he's held vital roles at Linfeng, AOL Turner, and High Growth Ventures acquired by IBM. He has also served as chairman of the United Nations ESBN Yet across 61 economies and taught as a professor of entrepreneurship at the University of Hong Kong.
We thank you for listening to this episode of Business Masters and trust this conversation provided valuable insights and perspectives that can help shape strategic thinking and decision-making within your organization. We look forward to welcoming you back for future episodes where we will continue sharing impactful analyses and hosting thought-provoking conversations that explore the ideas shaping the future of business, technology, and innovation.
As AI eventually reaches the point where its understanding of the game entirely surpasses our own, will the ultimate strategic advantage belong to the organization with the most advanced algorithm, or the organization that best preserves the unpredictable, unquantifiable edge of human creativity?
Business Masters, Behind the Decisions That Shape Successful Companies, a program produced by Pedro Eloy and Chinchin Ma. Each conversation is paired with rigorous industry, market, and business model analysis, providing practical perspectives on the strategic and managerial choices that drive long-term performance across sectors, including technology, manufacturing, textiles, and sports.